It's a small world.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please, let's have a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Sunshine Law. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. This meeting is being held in person and through the Zoom meeting platform, being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this regular council meeting of November 22nd, 2021 is available by call-in phone number or through web conference Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until it is time for questions or comments, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question, comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice of this meeting was included in the schedule of meetings, which was adopted by resolution number 2021-13 and sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, the Hub, and the Star Ledger on January 7th, 2021. Posted on the Borough website, the bulletin board in the municipal building, and is remaining continuously posted as required under the statute. With adequate notice having been given, the Borough Clerk is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. Allison, may I have a roll call, please?
Council members: Chris McKee. Here. Hatch. Here. McCabe. Here. McHugh. Net. Here. Rodriguez.
Here.
And Administrator Casagrande, Attorney Canning, Engineer Gardella, and Chief Montgomery.
Okay, I'd like to start with a proclamation. And Matt Carr, if you could join me up front. So this proclamation is remembering and honoring Bob Carr, your dad, who was the founder of the Fairhaven Men's Basketball League. Whereas Bob Carr was a longtime Fairhaven resident, having moved to the borough in 1995 with his wife of 40 years, Corrine, raising their three sons, RJ, Matt, and Brendan. Above all, Bob was a loving husband, father, grandfather, son, brother, friend, and neighbor. And whereas he was also very active in our community, volunteering countless hours, coaching various youth sports teams, and helping create lifelong memories for his sons and their friends along the way. He organized neighborhood block parties and get-togethers and was an active parishioner who donated his time at the Church of Nativity. And whereas, in addition to these many contributions to our town, Bob also created the Fairhaven Men's Basketball League by turning what started out as a small group of residents who played pickup basketball on Tuesday nights at Sickle School into a competitive 6-team league comprised of 48 players at Knollwood School. He organized an annual draft night for the league at the Fairhaven Firehouse, in which 6 teams were selected by captains. Draft night became a highlight of the league that everyone looked forward to every year. And whereas Bob's motivation for the league was to simply allow guys to get together, exercise, and have some fun. However, what he created became so much more. He enabled town residents to connect with one another, network, and form new and lasting friendships. The league became one of the many things that makes Fairhaven so special, as well as the envy of other towns. And whereas Bob passed away this past August, leaving us way too early, his family, friends, and neighbors miss him dearly, but are grateful for their time with him. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Borough Council of the Borough of Fairhaven that extends its deep appreciation and gratitude to Bob Carr and all his contributions to Fairhaven. Make a brief statement. If you hear Matt, you know, a lot of people move into town and a lot is made out of their kids, and their kids might not fit in and they don't have friends. And I still remember back in 2011, personally moving into town, I connected with Brian on email. He said, come out to the basketball league. And that draft night, when I went out, was the first time I really met people. And these were my first friends, and they remain my friends to this day. So sometimes you don't realize what impact something like that makes, and you should be really proud of your dad. I'm sure you are.
No, that would be so.
Yeah. You guys want to sneak out now, you can. We're going to move on to the workshop session. Micro projects, scope of work, and estimates.
I'll take that, Mayor. Council McHugh isn't here this evening, but as you know, Engineer Gardella, myself, Councilman McHugh, Councilwoman McCabe, and you met last week as a follow-up to the meeting with the rest of the governing body prior, where we discussed projects we wanted to move forward to. Back in April, we had actually passed a authorization to go out to bid in what we call micro projects, and the scope of work was a little less extensive than what's before you tonight in recommendations. But since that time, the governing body members have had some discussions on what they feel that their priorities are for our micro projects work, which at this point would be taken on in 2022. The recommendations before you, the governing body has. I sent an email out the other day. Certainly, their Hunting Lane from Hands to Dartmouth, that includes curbs, sidewalks, and milling and paving. Sidewalks are on one side. The engineer's estimate is $75,000. Park Lane, Linden, Laurel, and Buttonwood, that's a drainage improvement project that we talked about, connecting that area to drainage that's been partially installed, and that will completely take care of the drainage in that area of town. It's problematic. Sidewalk repair and replace is needed in the Gentry to $35,000. Fairhaven Road, the historic districts, which would be from River Road to the dock. Brick sidewalk repair and replace is needed, $35,000. At the terminus of Denori Avenue, running along the park, curbs and brick sidewalks on the park frontage for $30,000. Harding Road, Harrison to Oak Lawn, curb and sidewalk for $100,000. And Harding Road, Harrison to Charles Court, curb and sidewalk for $50,000. Rich is here if anyone has any questions. There really is no need for a motion or anything this evening, just the direction of the council to have Rich go ahead and design the projects as listed here. And then you would be asked at a future agenda to authorize that work going out to bid. I would imagine sometime in March, if I was, giving an estimate, it'll take Rich, I imagine, somewhere between 60 and 90 days. These type of projects are almost like doing, 7 different road projects. So they do take some time and oversight to design and to put forward. But I will say, judging on micro projects we've done in the past where we do work all around town, they are projects that the residents are very happy with, because they, as opposed to one road project, you see the efforts of capital improvements all around town. I do think Rich can speak to this, but there is some leeway in here for miscellaneous repairs, either curb or sidewalk spot done. Like if we had like so many feet of curb in one street that was really deteriorated, he could include that. I don't know if Rich, anything else to add to what I said, or?
The only thing I wanted to add, were you looking at Lewis Lane as well?
Oh yes, did I not put Lewis Lane? I didn't read out Lewis Lane. I didn't.
I have
You are correct. Sorry.
8 locations.
Yeah,
We had already surveyed Lewis Lane from back to Lewis Point. That road is in need of milling and paving, and also the ability to connect the sidewalk that we did back to the existing sidewalk on Lewis Point Road. That estimate is approximately $200,000. So all in, based on the 7 locations, Teresa mentioned plus Lewis Lane, and then I threw in about $50,000 for contingencies that if we were directly also dealing with inflation, supply demand, bid prices moving forward. We're at about $800,000 for the road program.
The Lewis Lane was the one segment where the one sidewalk had been done in front of the house, and you were going to straighten out the turn.
Yeah.
Yep. And that matches the spreadsheet I emailed home to governing body.
I have a couple questions, if I can jump in for a minute.
my understanding is that the fund has about $1 million in it, and this would essentially authorize up to 800,000 for all of these projects, plus the contingency.
My engineer estimates for these locations, yes.
Okay. The Normandy Ave terminus, the curbs and brick sidewalk on park frontage, so it would run, is it to improve it and replace it, or is it to install?
It would be to install. There's, when you head down to Normandy on the east side, as you approach the park, there's a common driveway that is shared by a house to the south and a house that has an easement to the back. We would install an appropriate brick apron. We would actually also pick up the brick sidewalk where it left off, so it would be
A continuation.
continuation along the frontage. When we did the park improvements, we just put in some stone dust as a temporary, footpath sidewalk area, knowing it was temporary and it is washing out and it needs to be dealt with. So this is a good opportunity to take care of that.
Does that, I'm trying to remember from last time I was there, does that path, it runs along where the sidewalk, where you would imagine the sidewalk be, and then it comes around to the front? Does it go all the way down the fence line also?
No, the sidewalk we're talking about tonight would just be along the frontage of the roadway, along the frontage of the park.
Oh, I'm sorry, I mean the stone dust trail.
The stone dust trail does come around and ties into the benches, yes.
But it doesn't run along the fence line.
The stone dust trail does not, it just goes along the front of the benches.
It goes between the benches.
Right.
It kind of meanders between the benches, along the bluff there. And the stone dust also allowed, the proper sub-base material. So it's pretty much prepped for the bricks. So it's not as.
I believe you said there was an issue there with cars, the way they were parking.
Yeah, the issue is in some of the areas, the curb face is either non-existent or only 2 inches. And cars tend to park on the stone dust, just because of the nature of the way it is. So putting in a proper curb, controlling the runoff, and installing the sidewalks will make it more of a proper pedestrian way.
It just looks to finish the project.
Yeah.
Just finish.
Sure. And then there at the foot of the Normandy, it just goes straight to the sand. Will when the water runs down, when it rains, storms, whatever, it'll just go straight to the sand. I don't know, are there any drains there?
This is like a multi-phase type project. The first thing we did was do some improvements to the green space, put in the benches, some of the trails, some of the plantings, etc. This next phase, which is somewhat cost effective, would be done under this type of road program, put in sidewalks. And then we've been working with Rutgers University, Monmouth University, Stevens Institute. We've got plans and concept to do shoreline protection, drainage, pretty cool drainage stuff. In fact, some of our concepts have been presented at some of these seminars that they've been doing in the last couple of years. So this is something that Nick and I have been working with them. It's more involved. There's extensive permitting involved, drainage calculations, the funding, things of that nature. And then obviously we've got the shoreline protection project that we had always kind of had on the docket for the Teresa, the
Littoral Society?
Littoral Society. Yeah, so,
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to make sure that installing curb and, new curb and sidewalk there isn't going to need to be removed or changed in conjunction with any of those future plans.
the limit of work where we're taking it to is it's an adequate location that we're not going to have to
Change that in the
do
future.
anything. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Maggie, you good? You got more questions?
I guess my only other question would be, with the additional funds in the account, is that being retained or reserved for a specific reason, or is it just intended to be cushioned for ancillary road projects or emergencies that might pop up?
Well, generally speaking, a couple things when it comes to the finance end of it. We don't always like to take our capital accounts down to zeros, because if we had an emergency or something that was unforeseen, we like that account to charge it to. We also have, you never know if you start a road project and something comes up and you have to do a change order for any of the projects, you have to have that money available. So, in light of what we currently have sitting there, when I sent, the email, I tried to give you a good synopsis. We have 350 in 2012, which was for generic roads and drainage, not specific. And then in the balance of the ordinances, where we did River Road West, Harrison, and Hanson Cooney, they came in under budget or under the authorization amount. So I double checked with bond counsel, and I have to double check with the CFO, but the bottom line is that, we can reallocate the funds from those ordinances without changing the ordinances. There's others that we can't because they're more specific, but those three are broad enough that we can. And then we have about $60,000 in the sidewalk trust fund. Usually that was taken from developers who didn't put sidewalks in. They gave the trust fund in lieu of. Many of them were on that stretch that Rich is talking about on Lewis Point Road there, that when they developed those houses, and then some of that money's in that. So, that gives you a total of, $1.10 million all in. And I think 800 at this juncture. You can always reassess when you do your next year's bond ordinance. Don't forget, you have to approve the funds for Fairhaven Road Phase 1.
Yeah.
So, if you wanted to add additional monies for road improvements at that time, you certainly could also.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. Any questions?
Nothing really.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Rodriguez?
Sure, just one question on Oak Lawn. We're just covering everything here, right? We're not just specific.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Harrison to Oak Lawn and Harrison to Charles Court. My question is really about, I think it's Oak Lawn to Prospect. Did that come up? And then can you just talk about that for a second?
So it did come up. We looked at the potential cost versus the specific benefit. Obviously, we do want to keep a buffer in the fund as well. We thought this would have the most impact that we can hit immediately. Mm-hmm. This will connect effectively, and I'm sure Rich can speak as to the sidewalks that it's connecting to, but it basically connects anything from those two places to the entire town.
Yeah.
And that's why we chose just that little section. We don't want to call it phase 2 and phase 3 just yet, but we have, initial plans that in the future we are going to go to Prospect. We just thought the money was better spent in other places at this specific time. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I support finishing it all the way up because I know you can get people to the church, and then also connects to the rest of the sidewalk.
I think that is our goal. Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that would be important for us to keep in mind.
Do you remember, Rich, what the additional cost was if we went from there to Prospect? I remember we threw it around.
I would say somewhere in the middle. So if it was 100 between Harrison to Oak Lawn and then 50 Harrison to Charles, probably about 75, give or take. Although there is curbing there, so we just have to deal with the driveways, some of the existing landscaping. So maybe closer to 50.
Could you bid it as an alternate? Or would it make sense?
We could start. Yeah, that's an option.
The only reason I ask also is the landscaping there and the properties are a bit more friendly to
a little more wide open. Yeah.
Anyway.
I would say as an alternative, if we don't do an alternate or we don't end up selecting that, is there a way to put in a crosswalk at Harrison or somewhere along that stretch so that if you are on the Fairhaven side, you need to access the sidewalk across the street, you get some sort of flashing crosswalk or, you know, safe mechanism to get across the street. Not that we want our kids doing that, but they won't need to because they're gonna be going to school, but
There is a crosswalk at Harrison.
there's a, okay, maybe we need to install flashers then.
We did some improvements to that when we did the bike lanes back in 15.
Evidence that I didn't know about it, even though I drive it every day.
Just restriped part of it too last
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so maybe, yeah, maybe we should consider putting in flashers so that when someone hits the button, it flashes.
I think the main issue, the residents mentioned, right, that if the problem was getting to that,
Right,
crosswalk.
sure,
and they felt it was dangerous getting to it.
sure, yeah, and it is, I'm sure,
So-
yeah.
The only thing I just want to remind everyone, Harding is a county road.
County road.
Yeah.
We do, even if it's sidewalk related, we still have to coordinate with
The county,
the engineering department and also their roads department. So
sure,
something like some type of advanced warnings or flashing type mechanism would definitely have to get
Approval.
Sure.
from them. And I would definitely seek input from the local
Of course.
PD.
yeah.
I'm good.
Thank you,
sir.
Councilman Rodriguez, Councilwoman Cox.
I'm good.
Councilman McHugh, hello, how are you? Well, do you have any questions on the road project?
And I didn't, my print area wasn't complete there, Councilman. I don't have the Lewis Lane, you know, from Baton, you know, on there. I don't have the contingencies. So the total is 800K with those.
So you spoke about the Lewis Lane and the cost for that already?
We did.
200, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
No, I was lucky enough to get briefed by Rich, our engineer, right on this, so. no
Councilwoman
questions.
McCabe?
Well,
You
good.
good?
That's part of the conversation, but
That's right. I think we've discussed this.
And we're leaving Prospect off where Rich designs it.
That's what we discussed.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, but maybe we look into what Councilwoman Chris McKee suggested with the lights. I know that's a county thing, but maybe we see what that entails.
Sure.
All
Yeah.
right. Moving on.
What's the timing of this kind of work, Rich? I think we asked this earlier, but what would be the timing, each of these projects?
Ideally, in the next 60 days or so, 90 days, I'll finalize drawings, specifications. Obviously, I have to work with the county on some of this. And shoot for a March bid date.
for all of it.
For all of it. And then weather permitting, you know, the concrete plants, asphalt plants, depending on winter. We can start sometime in the spring.
Okay, thank you.
And then, you know, we'll coordinate it appropriately.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to move on to public comment on agenda items. This is for public comment only on agenda items. Please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes if possible. And I guess we'll start with anyone that is here in person. Please state your name.
Hi, yes, Christine Everhard, 29 Bullpond Road. I just wanted to thank the council for really working with us, listening to what a lot of the people who are, some of the people are not here from Oaklawn because they happen to be school teachers in Fairhaven that are at parent-teacher conferences, working with our children, and other parents that are attending those conferences. So it's a little tricky tonight, but I represent the majority of us who have just really wanted this for a very, very long time to have access to the town safely for our pedestrians, for our children, for the older people on our street, to not have to worry about crossing a very busy road. So we're thankful that you are taking this project on, and we appreciate your time.
And this time next year, they can walk home from parent-teacher conferences on the sidewalk. All right. Anyone else?
Hello, I'm Linda Vanderslice,
Hi, Linda.
38 Oak Lawn Road, and I'm agreeing with Christine that we really, really appreciate your considering what we've been asking for. And I counted the homes on our Oaklawn Street, and this short section of sidewalk from Harrison to Oaklawn would impact 18 homes of children and adults who would be able to walk into the rest of the town easily. So, but I think it's a good investment, and I appreciate your considering. And I also wanted to say what a really nice job you did on Harrison, because I do walk down on Harding Road right now and get to Harrison, and the sidewalk, the grass sod between the sidewalk and the curb is beautiful, and you did a nice job, so thanks.
Thank you so much, Linda. We appreciate the comments. Anyone else? Teresa, is there anyone on Zoom?
Anyone from the public, if you raise your hand, if you want to comment on an agenda item, please raise your hand and I'll recognize you and Mayor will take your question. If not, looks like Leah. Go ahead, Leah, you can unmute yourself and talk.
Hi, I'm actually not positive if this is a agenda item, but it's Batten Road and a crosswalk. Does that apply?
We talked about Batten and Lewis.
So you were talking about Batten and Lewis and crosswalks, but
Why don't you go ahead and we'll see if it applies. I'm sure we can fit it in.
I was thinking there should be a crosswalk on Batten Road, on River Road, just where the firehouse is, just because there's a firehouse there, there's river rats, and there's the nearest place to cross is either Fairhaven Road or Krausers. Those are the only places that have crosswalks, but for such a busy area, it seems reasonable to have a crosswalk there.
Leah, we're going to comment on 1 second. Can you just state your address as well, please?
Oh, sure. I live at 66 Lewis Lane.
66 Lewis. Okay. Rich, can you speak to that specific location?
Hi, so you're talking about putting a crosswalk across River Road.
Right.
Like where the bank is?
We have one at Theater. We have one at Navasing. We have one at Fairhaven Road, obviously. When we did the streetscape, we did look at putting additional crosswalks. I know the county reviewed everything, and they and I think even our some of our internal staff worked with the county to try to see about adding additional, and we couldn't get anywhere with that. I do know, I thought you were still talking about, we still have to do the striping on Batten as part of that road job.
Right.
I spoke to the contractor last week, and we have to put in the crosswalk that used to be on Batten, and then we're putting a crosswalk at Batten and Lewis.
Isn't there a crosswalk there already? It was just put in? It looks brand new.
They might have just did it.
I think they did it last week. I came back from vacation, there was a crosswalk.
Okay. So
yeah.
It's done. Yeah.
Leah, is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about on the corner of Batten and River?
I just mean crossing River at Batten Road.
Yeah.
The challenge with that is the county doesn't like to necessarily do it. It's almost sort of like a mid-block crossing because it's not, there's no cross street across from Batten. It's a T intersection. Mm-hmm. They don't like to introduce crosswalks that don't exist on a main street like that. They kind of consider it a mid-block. And we have looked at other locations as well, and we were unsuccessful with that. We could certainly talk to them because we're going to be milling and paving in the next, year and a half, and coordinating those efforts. And we have to obviously do all the striping over and all the other crosswalks and things like that once the water main project's done. So I'll make note of it at least.
Or I wonder if other traffic calming measures would be helpful as alternatives. I forget what you call them, but there's almost like impediments that you put into the roadway that guide the cars and causes them to slow down because it becomes more narrow. I mean, we just did reduce to 25 miles per hour, so there's probably still some settling in to see how that's going. And maybe that will improve the ability to cross Baton, but obviously, or I'm sorry, cross river at Baton, but obviously we don't want people crossing where there's a crosswalk. I know someone had just posted on Facebook the other day about crossing river and it being very dangerous, especially for certain businesses and that sort of thing. So
as it is right now, is it the crosswalk by Lupo and then Krausers? Are those the two closest together?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is quite a distance.
And we have, my concern is that, you know, we also, I mean, I obviously live over there, but River Rats is there and there's a reason to cross there. Yeah.
There's also lots of things that go on at the firehouse that are reasons to cross there.
Right.
Typically, in a typical year, they have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 events a year. I mean, you think they have the car show, the fair, the spaghetti, the, I don't know, I'm forgetting 5 or 6 of them, but there's quite a few. So,
well, Leah, it doesn't sound like anyone up here thinks this is a bad idea, but it sounds like we have to do some more homework on what we can and cannot do, because I believe that's a county road as well.
That's a county road, and then it's not just putting in striping, it's also, we have to put in ADA ramps as well to get the pedestrians across appropriately.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have one at Cedar, which is a T intersection.
Yeah.
I think we can apply that same
Strategy.
to that, or at least I'm drawing a blank. Like, what's the road that comes out from the police station? Locust, or maybe right at Locust coming from the firehouse.
I'd like to see one closer to Fairhaven Road. To your point, Mayor, it's quite a distance between the 2 crosswalks, and River Road is heavily crossed.
Yeah.
And then anybody headed to the Green Cans Loop, Baton's a good way to go because you're going to go Lewis Point.
I think so. I think that's a good spot.
Yeah.
Great. Leah, thank you very much for calling in and your comments. Oh wait, hold on.
Thank you.
Hold on.
Can I just ask Leah a question if she has any input on the sidewalks for Baton to Lewis?
Oh, no, I think it's reasonable. I just worry about the trees being okay as a shade tree commission person. But it does make sense to connect them.
And Rich, if there isn't any, there will be no trees disturbed in that entire run. Yeah, that's pretty clear. Okay, I didn't know you guys.
They'll be okay. They'll be okay. Okay.
All right, thank you, Lee.
Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Anybody else in the public have a question? Raise your hand.
Mayor, I'll just make a quick comment if I can. To follow up on the Oak Lawn sidewalk comments. I think that this has been a year of learning about sidewalks and curbs, and I think that there's something to be said about going through this process, learning what we've learned, having very long and many conversations about this. But I appreciate the fact that we've come to a place where one neighborhood sought for one thing, and in turn, it was able to help another neighborhood get something. And I just think that's a beautiful thing. So I'm really happy for it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? House Lady 7 had her hand up, but she put it down, I think, unless you.
You
I don't see any other hands, sir.
all right.
Oh, no, House Lady 7 now has her hand up. Go ahead.
Are we at the public comments part of the agenda?
We are at the public comment on agenda items.
Oh, okay. I will wait until later. Thank you.
We'll speak to you later. Thank you. We're good, Teresa?
Yes, we're good, sir.
All right, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. May I have a motion to approve the November 8th regular and executive session meeting minutes?
Motion. Second.
Roll call.
McKee?
Yeah.
Yes.
McKee?
Yes.
Chu?
Yes.
Net?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
May I have a motion to approve the November 15th special meeting minutes?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Keith?
Yes.
Koch?
Yes.
McHugh?
Yes.
Net?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Old business. Does anyone have any old business they would like to discuss? All right, let's move on to new business. Council committee reports. Why don't we start with finance with Councilwoman Neff?
Nothing need to report in this meeting. We've had a few finance meetings. We canceled the one for the last week, but we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks from now. So I'll have more to report then.
Thank you, Councilwoman Neff. Personnel, Councilwoman Krishna Keith.
No personnel updates.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Planning and zoning and parks and recreation and communications, Councilwoman Koch.
Yep, zoning board, the next meeting will be on December 2nd. At the last planning board meeting, which was on November 16th, the M&M site plan approval was carried to the December 21st meeting. So that approval was not presented, or the proposal for the approval was not presented at the last planning board meeting. For recreation, the second annual holiday house decorating contest is about to start. Information about the contest has been posted on the Borough website. And while not directly connected to recreation, a Small Business Saturday will be the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and the Business Association will be providing a trolley, as in past years, to go up and down River Road. And that is it.
Thank you, Councilwoman Koch. Councilman McHugh, police, fire, and office emergency management, as well as engineering and DPW, please.
No new reports for police, fire, OEM. Engineering, DPW, I believe we just went through pretty thoroughly with the engineering aspect of all that. Was along with DPW, so no new business to report there. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman McHugh. And Councilman Rodriguez, Borough Facilities.
Sure, I have two quick updates. We're circling in on a couple of candidates for owner reps for the DPW and police department buildings. Those owner reps, we've gotten proposals from, and we have asked the committee, the facilities committee, certain members to review those candidates. We'll likely do some interviews of those folks and then come back with a recommendation. The second thing is on November 30th, which is next Tuesday, we'll be having our regular every other week facilities meeting, and that will be done jointly with the Historic Commission so that they can review the rationale and plans for Bicentennial Hall, and there will be an open Q&A for them about what we submitted to the state, which we were able to get some grant money for towards the rehabilitation and upgrades at Bicentennial Hall. So that is that's the update.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. Moving on to the consent agenda, resolutions 2021-245, executive session, personnel and contract negotiations, 2021-246, approved 2021 budget transfers, 2021-247, purchase authorization for small ticket capital, 2021-248, accept performance guarantees for 101 Princeton Road, and 2021-249, approved Fairhaven civil rights policy, 2021-250, payment of vouchers. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to make on the consent agenda?
Mayor, I would request that we vote on resolution 2021-247 separately, purchase authorization for small ticket capital.
Okay.
You know my reasons why.
Teresa, should we vote on everything else?
You can move the rest of the agenda minus 2021-247, and then if that passes, go on to 21-247 Motion second, discussion.
Okay, so let's I'm gonna ask for a motion on all of those resolutions except for 2021-247. Have a
Make a
motion?
motion.
Second,
Roll call.
Councilmember Krasinski,
Yes.
yes.
McCabe,
Yes.
McHugh,
Yes.
Net,
Yes.
Burbidge.
Yes.
Okay, returning to 2021-247. This is the purchase authorization for small ticket capital. Speak to it?
Yes, I would like to speak to that. Thank you. One of the items that are have been requested as a capital item is under Department of Public Works. And the one item that I have an objection to at this point is the vehicle for the director not to exceed $38,500. It's been my understanding that at different times in the borough's history, a director or the head of a department would receive a new car, and then that car would replace the car that gets passed down to an assistant or another member of the borough that actually needs a car. And right now, our director has a car that's 4 years old. And the intent of this particular capital item request is to buy a car for another car for the director, and then pass his 4-year-old car down to the director of Parks and Recreation. The director of Parks and Recreation is currently driving a hybrid SUV that has 140,000 miles on it. However, he does use that car just to get around town. It probably never leaves town. And right now, I cannot approve buying another car at $38,500 for the director and passing that car down to Parks and Recreation. So I don't know where we go from here.
Any other council members have a question or comment? We'll start down the end.
Sure. Yeah, I guess my question would just be, a better understanding of the Fairhaven fleet. I would say aside from the police vehicles, I know we have an OEM truck, and obviously we have certain machinery and equipment at DPW, but to understand what vehicles borough employees have and or utilize, what do we have available currently?
You want to take it to DPW, Rich? I'm sure the chief can take it to a PD.
No, I'm saying aside from
There are
major trucks and police vehicles, what are the other vehicles?
Most municipalities would have a floater, so if the clerk or the administrator had to go to a class up in New Brunswick, they had a vehicle to take. Or if the director needed something to use, etc. We don't have that option. We've never had that in Fairhaven. What we've always done is similar, like what I'm requesting tonight is, yes, my car's only 4 years old, but we have a rec director who's also handles special projects and such. And he's driving a 2009 hybrid Ford Escape. It was my vehicle at one time, then it went to my assistant Nick, and then it went to DJ. It's got excessive miles on it. I think if you speak to our vehicle maintenance mechanic, he would tell you that it's not worth putting any more money into this. It's past its life of that type of vehicle. I even spoke to the director last week. He barely drives it. He drives his own car. He doesn't put in for mileage. He drives his own car because it's not the greatest vehicle, even to be shooting around town to Fairhaven Fields or to follow up with other projects and things of that nature. So I saw it as an opportunity, and I talked to him before I put this request in, and obviously Teresa and my liaisons. This is kind of the way we normally do it. And he doesn't necessarily need a new car because the other thing is he goes to the community center, he's throwing tables and chairs in there and things like that. He's running to pick up stuff at Target and all the displays and stuff that he uses for all the different events. So this is kind of the protocol that we've always done. I don't need a new vehicle. It's just, it was an opportunity for him to take mine, which is in good condition, It's got several years left. It would be more than adequate for him. And then I was putting in for the new one, my department.
So, and the other, what, I'm sorry, aside from the 2009 hybrid Ford Escape, what kind of car do you currently have, Rich?
I have a 2017 Ford Explorer.
Okay, and does the borough have any other vehicles for borough place? Does Nick have a car?
Nick has a vehicle. It's a 2000, I want to say 19 or 20 Ford Ranger pickup. And then all the other vehicles are work trucks, either pickups, dump trucks, you know, heavy equipment. The other thing that I ordered a pickup truck back in 8 months ago. We're not even gonna have it for this snow season. That everything is so far behind. So that's the other thing we're thinking of. You know, we may not get this until next summer.
Which is perfect.
If we're lucky. That's why I had thrown, you know, I had thrown it. This is why I put it in this request. So that's wrong.
And Teresa, borough employees who go to seminars or to run errands or whatever for work purposes, they are entitled to put in for mileage and
They put it on.
Okay.
Is that what DJ's doing now? You mentioned that he drives his own car around town.
I don't think he's putting.
That's the first I've heard that, because I would not want the director of works, you know, driving. He's entitled to mileage, and it also becomes very problematic when you're doing an official borough function like that, where you're going from place to place and carrying borough equipment. If there's a car accident, it becomes the coverage issues are, you know, your risk manager, your JIF, your MEL, you know, that would be problematic.
The other, not only is the vehicle from a mechanical standpoint, still, we've tried to have it detailed. It's just, you know, and it's just one of those things where he's third person to have it. It's been passed down the line. So
it's really up to you, but I said one of our biggest issues is the lead time in getting anything new now. And you know, although this time of year you don't see the director of public works going around as much, you know, it sits out there probably a lot because it's, you know, in the office or whatever. But once he starts to get into the spring season, he's starting up camps, he's bringing equipment, he's moving stuff. I mean, just what they had last week, like, you know, when he's going to the Halloween parade or something, you can see that vehicle loaded up, you know, with all kinds of stuff, cones and anything he's bringing when he's having an event. And you know, he does need a decent sized vehicle to transport that stuff. We had him in a Crown Vic, and he just, you know, it was an old one, but he couldn't carry anything. It didn't carry, it was not, and it eventually broke anyways. And I believe he sold it at auction, the one he was driving before. I mean, you know, we don't have a huge fleet here, and so the idea here was just, you know, to try to, you know, bring the fleet up to the next level and make sure we had a car available by the time we get this one, which I have no idea how long it'll be.
What's the best practices for other surrounding towns?
You know, everyone has their own, you know, most towns I know, I mean, some towns, you know, the administrator has a car. Some, I don't know what you do at your town, but most people, some towns have a fleet.
Everything has a pool. So
yeah,
there's 5 cars, and whoever needs them for the day goes out there. Chief McGovern, you had a new vehicle, I think, that was coming in. Is there a vehicle going out?
There is one vehicle just came in. We're retiring a 2006 Durango, and then another car was ordered for this year. Still waiting for it, and that's going to replace a 2012 Dodge Charger.
The Dodge Charger work for?
No, I don't think the Charger would work. That's a small, you know, sedan.
Right.
What about the Durango?
Is the Durango, despite its age, is it in good shape?
Yeah, I think it has. I'm just kind of guessing. I plan thought, but I think it has about 130, 140,000 miles. So that's 06 Durango.
Is there a reason, or I guess, I don't know, has the borough ever explored buying newer but used vehicles? I know used vehicles are in high demand right now.
But
yeah,
the state contract was kind of tough. Maybe you buy a new vehicle, state contract, sometimes it's cheaper than, you know, especially
sure.
now. And I don't even think state contract when you buy it, but you can get a car fairly cheap on state contract with get the right options, right?
Right.
You'll see other towns sometimes auction vehicles off, just like we do, but usually by the time municipality
Yeah,
auctions the
that's true. You
vehicle
can
off,
buy an off vehicle, but they're auctioning because.
they're mostly for scrap.
Right.
Generally.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to look at the need versus the cost. I don't know, 38.5, does that sound like a lot for a car? I don't know. Is there a cheaper alternative?
I mean, the state contracts usually like, I mean, you have to remember that part of the dealer easily costs $10,000 more.
Right.
Because you're one, not dealing with the dealer, because there's no middleman, and then two, there's a bulk discount because the state's about having everyone buy from the same place.
Sure.
So you'll never find that Ford Explorer for 38.5 anywhere.
Right.
Unless it's been in an accident or something like that.
Sure.
So that's mostly why, and the intergovernment, if you have a car that's worthwhile, you can see that, like, the only way to get it is really intergovernmentally because of the bids, and the state contract is pre-qualified.
Right.
But if anyone has a decent car, they're not selling it unless they have a problem.
Right.
You know, I mean, that was after Sandy, there was some of that because people got so much money, they had like a ridiculous amount of vehicles. But like that, those days are obviously over with what's going on. I mean, the really only way to do it is buy it new and then use it till it breaks, more or less.
It doesn't sound to me like an unreasonable expense. I mean, it sounds to me like it's replacing a very old car that the director of recreation is not even using because it sounds like it's probably falling apart. If we don't pay for it now, we're going to pay for it in 2 years from now. It sounds like it's like needs to be done.
So I think that for the purpose of the way that DJ is using it, maybe there's a different vehicle that he should be looking at, you know, a pickup truck or something like that.
No,
it sounds like things are being.
The SUV type vehicle is sufficient. This one's a small one, the hybrid. And even that is, you know, he manages to get by. He didn't do well when he had the Crown Vic, like those old police cars. Because there was no real place to open up the back and put stuff in them.
Yeah. You need something that's enclosed too, because if he's got an event on the weekend, we'll load everything up Friday with him. And then he's good to go. He'll come in Saturday morning and then just go, you know, take it from there.
And DJ doesn't take these cars home.
Right, that's what I learned. The only thing I'll add to, and just as a point, is many organizations are required to use their personal cars and to pay mileage. So the idea of the insurance, you have sales reps for major companies that are using their own personal car, putting mileage in, and if there's an accident, it's covered under the company somehow. So that I just wanted to factor that in somewhere. It does feel heavy to me, to be honest, to go out and purchase a vehicle. Yes, there's a need there, but you know, Meg took exactly the words out of my mouth. Like, what does our fleet look like and where can we maybe leverage something? I don't know what the answer is, but this does feel just a little bit heavy to me, a bit of a.
I have this is a question somewhat offline, but have we got word back from our JIF about the fire department having a third vehicle?
They're looking into it. I followed up with them last week. They answered me today with the league. It's on their radar. They were going to follow up, but with the league, everything kind of stopped because of.
We'll hear from a few days. But that's something that the governing body will have to look at.
So
because you've had that request, and whether or not you want to change that policy from 2 to 3 chief cars in the fire department is another.
Should we air that out now? So you can certainly. You want to give the background?
I'll give the background. We got a email about maybe a month ago from Kevin Countryman, who's the chief of fire department. And they always have had 2 vehicles, one for their chief and one for their assistant chief. Now the fire department buys their own vehicles. The borough does not buy them, but they immediately transfer them over to the borough, and then we insure them, maintain them, and keep them. So they just bought us a new car that would go to the truck that would go to the chief, and then they passed the chief's car down to the first assistant chief, and then the deputy chief, whatever they call, and then they wanted to keep a third car potentially in the fire department for the next chief in line. Now that would be something that they've never done before, and although there's no upfront cost to the borough because we didn't buy the car, there would be costs, you know, for our JIF, you know, to obviously insure it, and then we'd have to maintain it, and then we'd have to gas it. So that would be a change. I told the chief it was a change in policy and protocol for the mayor and council would have to be consulted on it because it wasn't up to me to make that determination.
What used to happen? Did that car be sold? Or?
Yeah, usually they would auction it off.
And how old is that car?
I'd have to look and see what his years are on those cars.
2016.
The 15?
And 2016.
Yeah. What type of car? Is that an SUV as well?
It's an SUV.
Suburban?
It's a Tahoe.
Well, maybe we could.
And it would normally go to fire patrol, but their vehicle's in good condition, so they didn't want to.
So you're suggesting we could buy that and use that?
Well, we own it.
For
It's a
detail.
borough
We
vehicle
own it.
this juncture.
Pardon me?
We
It's a
already.
car.
We have to
Insurance.
buy it.
So
Well-
why don't we just use that?
Well, because you had a request from the fire department to go a different direction, you know, so.
Correct,
All
yeah.
right,
that
but we don't even know if
request
Jeff and Mel will cover it, right? We don't even know what our insurance.
Well, there'll be obviously some cost to insure an additional vehicle. And then, you know, we maintain it, and, you know, through our, mechanic parts and maintenance, and then we also gas it up.
Do they have an interest in a 2006 hybrid?
I think that's like perfect.
So
If
do I.
we took their third car.
Right, but they've made a request
Right.
to
We
have a
have to
third
consider that request.
vehicle. Sure, yeah, and we have to weigh and consider that.
What is, just help me understand the benefit of them having this third vehicle to the borough is XYZ.
Well, they're gonna tell you that they're gonna utilize it as either like a fleet car, or it's gonna go to the next chief in line. And that's, as long as I've been here, that's not been the policy. They always have two vehicles, you know, but I guess maybe because this one's in better shape than usual, or maybe because the fire police don't need it for whatever reason, they've decided that they want to give another one to the next chief in line. Correct, Mike? Is that pretty much the synopsis of where they are?
Sure, so on schedule, I think 43 or 40 years, they buy a new car. And they pass it down. And then probably, I would think maybe the past 2 years, wear and tear, with everything freezing up, not making calls during COVID and stuff like that. The wear on the vehicles that traditionally had been there is not there. So obviously, it's a volunteer firefighting company, and you know, from the chief down, and really nothing against our chief, it's the guys below him or women below him. When that time comes, they're doing a lot of the work. They're doing the runs. They're going to the place and check air tanks and stuff like that. By the time you get to the chief, it's pretty much you're delegating down. So, you know, we're lucky in our town for the most part with volunteers who step up, and it's almost like a perk for the volunteer job and a reward and incentive for people. You know, we'll see the years coming up, a lot of the reappointments to the chief's positions and the police captains are reoccurring people because it is a lot of work. So it's just really an incentive, a reward for the volunteers
So can I
for
just,
our town.
do you mind if I just ask for clarification? I understood that they buy the cars. So, but now you said we own that third car. What do you mean? by
Well,
that?
because when they buy them, they turn them over to the borough. They, you know, it's registered in the borough's name, the borough insures them, the borough maintains them, the borough gives them gas.
Got
No,
it.
that's-
But they bought it. So
They,
it was-
the fire
initial
department
investment was
in-
theirs.
purchases those vehicles.
And how much how much is it costing us annually for that maintenance and that insurance?
Well,
and
that's
that
what we're
gas?
working on. We went to, you know, Allison sent an email out to our risk manager, and everyone was kind of down for the league, so we didn't hear back from them. But the differential will be in, you know, the additional cost of insurance for a third vehicle that we don't usually insure for the fire chiefs.
Okay.
And then there will be maintenance costs and gasoline costs, because they gas the cars up over.
So, I guess I'm just trying to get an idea. We're talking about $5,000, $10,000, $2,000, whatever we thought.
You know, as far as the insurance goes, you know, I'd have, you know, I wouldn't hear directly from them. It's like anything else. It's based, I'm sure, on the age and, you know, exposure. And I'd have to get an idea from Bryce and Rich what they spend in, you know, vehicle maintenance and gas. But vehicle maintenance is a crapshoot. You know, you can lose a transmission tomorrow for all you know. You don't know, but you know,
And sorry, when we've auctioned it off in the past?
So not necessarily directly, depends on, like, it might have gone to the fire, police, but eventually when there's nothing of value left in any borough vehicle, we put them out to auction. I don't remember the last time we auctioned off a fire department vehicle. Remember, Joe?
No, they said they usually go to the first aid, or they go to the fire police, or sometimes DPW. It's been a while.
Our old
Last
OEM
one
truck,
back, so
the old OEM truck, the one that was always breaking down, didn't that come originally from the fire department?
that came from the fire. Yeah.
So Teresa, if they bought the vehicle that we're maintaining and insurance, if we were to acquire this vehicle, would we be paying them something for it, just for?
Yes, like, that's what I'm trying to get
Yeah,
to. Like,
we would be.
if we were auctioning off
I think it's,
car
I
as
think
of 2014 has some value, would we be paying them back? Because I feel like we owe them, almost feel like we would owe them something.
You know, but it's really a policy decision, and whether or not you want to sit down with the fire department and see, you know, what their overall plans are and needs are. They've made a request to keep the vehicle, you know,
based on us with the maintenance and the insurance stuff, carrying that.
You know, my intent was to come back to the governing body and have this discussion when I had the full numbers.
Oh, okay.
It just came up, it just came up a little early based
No,
on.
but it's a good piece of the puzzle.
Because it does provide us with an option for a car for a DJ.
Yeah.
So can we defer this? So until we actually have numbers?
yeah.
My question is, can we defer just that one expense and vote on the rest of the resolution?
The resolution's set and the certification of funds are set, you know.
Yeah, we have to we have to redo the underlying documentation for that, if you're gonna change it.
What does that mean now?
Like, you can table it, and we can bring it back next time with something changed, or
my suggestion.
I'm not sure where the majority is. Obviously, you can vote on it.
My suggestion was going to be, sounds like there's no other issues on this list. If we approve this and then come back, because there's a lot of good ideas here, and there's a bit of a quest for additional information, it might be that we just go with this as well. I think there's just a little bit more homework I think people want done on this particular line item. I was going to suggest, doesn't sound like it's as simple as my suggestion, which is take everything, approve that, and then come back on December 20th, which I think is our next council meeting, and with ideas and tackle that one on the 20th. And this way we do it all this year, and we still get all these things that we need here from a capital expenditure perspective, and still solve for the vehicle question, because there are a number of good ideas up here, and I don't actually know which one's the best one. We're just brainstorming here. I'd rather go with these things and come back on this one.
Well, we can authorize a capital expenditure at any point, right?
This resolution, you can table the next meeting, you so desire.
I think what I'm hearing is they want to know if we can approve. Oh, you're saying before the next meeting?
No, you can table this to the December 20th meeting if you so desire.
That's what we have to
We
get
could
in the next
table it,
meeting.
or we could bring this back at the next meeting without the vehicle on it, approve everything else, and just either put it separately and approve it or don't approve it, or we could approve it at the first meeting in January, for example.
You could amend the resolution and put, you see what we did with the fire department, and I you know, maybe not the whole governing body, but certainly, you know, Mike and Chris and the mayor were copied on that. They had some back and forth on whether they want to do the scout packs, they want to do the radios, and they're looking into the radios, but they weren't certain. So what I offered to the chief of the fire department, and you know, with copying the council members just mentioned, is that we said we went miscellaneous capital purchases not to exceed 18,000. I'm sure, you know, the director of public works has other small ticket items that you need and that he would have submitted this year had he not put in for the vehicle. So you could change this resolution and put Department of Public Works miscellaneous capital items not to exceed $60,000, and then, you know, come back and make a decision on, you know, I could report at the further meeting what was actually, you know, decided upon, what we talk about next week. That way the rest of the resolution can move forward, and then you can deal with just that car piece.
With the certification from the CFO.
It'd be the same amount.
Yes, the same amount.
I don't know that I'm comfortable with $38,000 in miscellaneous.
And
I think agree.
Would
It's
we,
specific, it matches the resolution, sorry.
Oh, she listed it
It's
out in her
listed.
certification.
Oh, okay.
Exactly what you see in that resolution, because it's broken out.
Not just the
It's not
amount.
certain. We should table this. Yes.
Is there anything on this resolution that time is such of the essence that if we don't approve it at this meeting, there's an issue with that?
Community center playground.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I know they wanted the community center playground, I know they wanted the lower claw for the season, it's such a back order, I don't know about, I can't speak for the chief.
Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff there important, but everything's so backlogged. I just want to get through the can, but it's not.
Okay, so can we table this?
Whichever resolution.
Is everyone right?
And
with
if we
that?
need to move other
Agree?
things forward, I mean, we could always, not that we want to call a special meeting, but I suppose we could have.
I guess I just have a question in terms of direction. Was the intent to reduce the cost overall? So, because I think I heard possibly keep the same amount and use it for something else? Or is our intent here to try to just remove that 38,000 out of the cost and just have a reduction? And maybe save that for something else?
If you look historically on that small ticket report I gave you guys a few meetings ago, generally speaking, you know, it's police, DPW, and usually fire and first aid that you approve on the small ticket capital. And usually PD, DPW traditionally, you know, somewhere in that $50,000-$60,000 range is what they do annually. And what they don't do this year, they hold till next year or vice versa. So, you know, Rich could certainly say, you know, I'll hold on the car and see if we need it next year. And in the meantime, you know, I don't want to speak for him, but he would say, you know, maybe he needs lawn equipment, something. I don't know what he needs. But so, you know, we certainly can look at that and give, you know, follow up with the committee and look at other alternatives that don't include the car. The handling of the fire department, I'm not so sure you're going to be able to resolve that between now and December 20th. I think it's a little bit delicate. I don't know if you want to say, you know, we're taking your car. Like, you know, so that might take a little longer than between now and December 20th. You know, that's a conversation that I think maybe the mayor and the fire department committee would like to sit down with them and even broach that. You know, maybe if you say, well, you know, what else in capital we need or something. You know, I'm not saying that it couldn't be done. I just don't know if we can do that between now and the 20th of December.
especially how long we've been working on that, just the GIF aspect.
Yeah, well, that I think will turn around pretty quickly.
It's been 2 weeks.
Now that we've been,
Since they made it.
okay.
He made the request, our risk manager is pretty responsive.
Is one potential option that they would share on the maintenance cost of that third car?
All of these are things that you know,
They could potentially share that cost?
yeah, I mean, you know, it would seem to me, and, you know, once you put a third car in for the fire department, you'll probably, that would be your tradition going forward, that you maintain 3 cars. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. It just, you know, we've always had the 2 and now we're moving to 3. It's a different, you know.
So you're setting a precedent.
Yeah, you know, and you certainly put parameters on it. You could say, you know, no repairs to exceed a certain amount or something. But I would imagine, you know, I don't know if they're not going to say, well, if we're not going to be able to use it for the chief, we want to use it, you know, we want to do something else with it. I don't really know.
They could keep it on in the fleet and just not have it driven around as a personal vehicle.
They might, that's something they might want to do. I mean, that's something, I think
it was seen, I think he had mentioned, like, if it's not allowed, keeping it to bring equipment to the scene, like saw horses or whatever they need for events or.
Well, how do they do that now?
like I said, they're a volunteer group and they do purchase their vehicles, and we've always worked with them a certain protocol. So I'm not saying there's not room to change that, but I'm not so sure it's going to be that, you know, that's moving into the borough's fleet.
So we could think about something like beyond 2 cars, the maintenance is either shared or covered by them or something else. Like that could potentially be a way to think about it, that they're, you know, or not. I'm just saying.
I think that's a separate piece though, to needing a new car for that's just another dynamic to their third car versus how are we solving for the need for
the recreation vehicle.
Can I just clarify one thing? Did I understand that cars have to be purchased through a certain vendor if we're purchasing them through? So it's not like we can say, oh, we just found a used truck for $17,000 on the side of the road and we're going to go purchase that. We're not permitted to do that.
We could do that, but that's not, when you purchase a new car and somebody tells you can have a half off, you're going to take that deal all day. That's what the state purchasing agreement is. Yeah. It's not half, but you get.
No, but you're getting such a good deal.
It's a big power of the state contract pricing, because you're buying it, like Greg said, for the entire state, so you really get, you cut out the middleman and you get a good discount.
Okay.
So it's buying new through state contracts is the best bang for your buck, I probably would say, would be a good way to put that.
And is the protocol, and Rich, sorry, but is the protocol, you know, always the director of Rich's role passes the car down, or maybe again, we should find a car that may fit different needs for DJ, that the car goes to DJ and Rich keeps his 4-year-old car. Like,
I think the thought was that this car would fit the needs for, like we said, they don't want an open pickup truck. Now we got Nick Korchinski a pickup truck, and we got the plow and all of that, because you know, he actually will come in and utilize that car if we have a storm, you know. So we do look at the needs of the department and, you know, decide what vehicles fit best, and whether they're buying a new pickup truck or a new dump truck, or, you know, as far as their actual DPW fleet goes.
so a pickup truck with a cab, right, could also benefit. I'm just trying to be efficient here. So the car for DJ sits here all weekend long and someone needs it from DPW, and we could throw a plow on it. We can throw something to clean leaves on up more. Being trying to be funny. Didn't land well.
Thank you.
I got you. Thank you. So I'm just saying multi uses for this vehicle that we're getting for DJ. If you buy a truck with a cap on it, that possibly could be used for a DPW if they need an extra car, just to try to be a little bit more efficient with cars. All I'm saying, that may just feel a little bit softer for me as we're looking to purchase a $38,000 car.
And like I said, I really defer to you.
Yeah.
And, you know,
well, I have one more meeting, so this may land on all of you in January.
Rich, I just had one last question on this. Did you have a specific type of car or make and model that you were considering?
I was just gonna get another Explorer. Yeah, keep it simple. The other thing is the fleet that we have, in the 14 years I've been here, we finally replenished it. When I came, we had an aging fleet. We also had a lot of dump trucks and things we weren't using. So we went to the traditional pickup trucks. So they are multi-purpose types. So we can use them for, sometimes PD borrows them for events and things. So we do share vehicles like that. And we try to buy vehicles that we're using all year round. We don't just buy something because we need this for a blizzard,
right? Or
we need this for leaf season. It's very multi, you know, I try to instill the less is more approach with everything. And I think the vehicles, we've done a good job. And it's typical, an 09 vehicle, it's time to replenish. It's generation already, and I think if you saw it, it would be great.
When DJ got the hybrid, Nick was driving it, and we were waiting for Nick's car to come in. And DJ had the Suburban before that, which had belonged to the police eons before that, and literally the Suburban just rusted out the bottom. I mean, it was Fred Flintstone.
The brake lines just
they couldn't repair.
I'm not questioning that.
What I was saying, what we did then was DJ would borrow a pickup truck from the DPW guys to use, and then Rich was down a truck, you know. But we did patch that for a little while we were waiting for Nick's truck to come in, so we could pass the hybrid down to DJ by having him borrow one of the DPW fleets. But sometimes that left Rich short on a DPW car when we did that. And that my only point is, since it's taking who knows how long to get a truck now, you know, if you know DJ could probably muddle through in the next couple of months, you know, but once we get into the spring when he's moving a lot of equipment and going back and forth and stuff, he'd have to take one of the DPW vehicles to do that. We wouldn't have an option if we didn't have something else for him to use.
So we're going to table resolution number 2021-247 to the next
and
meeting. In
the meantime, between now and the 12th, are we going to attempt to bring the fire department in this, or do you want me to have Rich give you alternative capital requests that doesn't include a vehicle?
I'd like to figure out what to do with that they're requiring the fire department.
Well, I'd be interested to know what the GIF's response is.
Right, and then I can email that out to you as far as that goes and get some idea.
Yeah, I want to see what the request
would ultimately cost us.
Even with that
If not,
information, someone's gonna have to.
I mean, I'd like to explore other options over the next few weeks, but even if not, I think the next time we come to the table, maybe we have two separate resolutions, one with it and then one on its own.
I don't think it's the resolution that's the problem. I think it's the underlying paperwork. I think that's what I'm hearing, because all we need to do is amend this. If that was the case, am I hearing that right?
The clerk says that the CFO listed out all those items on the certification
Exactly,
of
it's your
availability of
Right,
funds.
and so it's not the.
Let's go back to the CFO.
Separate.
Otherwise, we would just change it right here, but you
Yeah.
have to get the CFO to certify it before you adopt it. It's not valid.
She's earmarking stuff for line items.
But can we get like a cost estimate on what it would be, what the expense to the borough would be for that third car?
That's what we're waiting.
That's what we're working on.
Definitely,
I
Start
sent
there and then
stuff
kind of-
to our risk
Yeah.
manager, and they're looking to get an assessment on what keeping that car would be. They have all the old vehicle information, all the new vehicle information, and they're gonna come. So can I have a motion for the non table?
Yeah, can I have a motion to table?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Just-
Do I need a roll call? All in favor? All right. Let's move on to department reports, October 2021, police department, tax collector, municipal court, budget status. Do I have a motion to accept the reports as submitted?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Next up is good of the borough. Please stand and identify yourself by clearly stating your name and address for the record. Please observe a time limit of 3 minutes. Tracy Cole.
Hi, Tracy Cole, 123 Grange. It's gonna sound like we're going back into what you just got out. It's completely coincidence. I started to familiarize myself with their facility to try to, I'm in my orientation phase and anticipation of joining you all. And I had the occasion to want to go over to DPW, kind of start to understand how many trucks we have, what happens and who takes care of them, how does all that actually occur. And I will tell you about everything I learned. We do have a number of vehicles between the PD and DPW. It's, I didn't get an exact count. It's a couple dozen. And one of the things I learned that I thought I should bring here, and maybe Mike, you and I can talk about it after or something like that. I don't know the proper protocol, but the guys, so we repair our cars. Maybe you guys already know that. I didn't. So, oil changes and car stuff, like we have a mechanic who takes care of all of cars. And they don't have a lift, which is a really important piece of equipment so that he can get under there and do this work. So I don't know who makes that decision to purchase a lift, but the guys need a lift. It's been a year.
We've already ordered the lift.
When will it arrive?
I don't know when we'll drive. I know I got the purchase, or I did the purchase requisition for it.
When did you do the purchase requisition?
Maybe a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago.
It'd be good for them to know that, I think.
They do.
Today,
He and
that's
he's
why I want to
a,
hear.
it's
This
Bryce.
is like an internal department thing. I didn't know.
Bryce?
So maybe something that's not authorized.
He's the head mechanic.
Didn't Teresa, I think Bryce sent an email.
Yeah, and I copied you on it.
And that's when I said, what's going on? Then I think you said that. So maybe he found out
I had to
after
get,
you spoke to him,
and
Teresa.
for
It
the
could
sake of
be.
anybody, I'll be happy to share it with you. We had a request for it, but
My point is, he
it had to be
didn't
a
know
lift
at
that
that
could move
point. That's
into the
all I
new
said.
building.
Regardless of.
And I had to get the okay from bond counsel,
Good.
who reviewed the ordinance when we did the facilities ordinance and asked if it was okay to charge the lift to the new facilities capital ordinances on the ability that we could move it. Before we had to do that, we had to make sure with the architect that the specs were so that the floor could, absorb it in the new building. It's not as easy as saying.
I wasn't questioning. I was just explaining why the timeline might be off, why she thought they didn't know. And
Yeah.
it sounds like he knows now. Bryce.
Which is great. I mean, all of that is good news because it sounds like it's going to happen and it's hopefully not going to hit any delays, who knows, maybe it will, but it can be installed there and relocated when the time comes.
That's the intent, yes.
Yeah, so good. I didn't see any reason for it to not happen, and I couldn't understand why it happened. So that's all very good news. And in the way of feedback, just still the piece about the car conversation, just listening to it, the part. So I understand how we have a hierarchy with our fire department, and we have a chief, and our police department, and we have a chief. And there's a very formal, time-tested traditional hierarchies. But here, the borough, we don't have that. I mean, Rich isn't the chief. The piece of that getting the new car that bothered me was like, well, if the rec guy needs a car, then there should be an appropriate purchase made for that department head, not applying that same thinking about the hierarchy. I don't know where that thinking came from, but that's the piece of it that I thought didn't sit right with me. Not so much the cost or even the reason for getting a new car, but the fact that it was this trickle down.
Well, you could.
You could receive it for what it is. Just that's how it struck me. It seemed well, hey, why? So, and I also like the idea of the pool vehicles. Maybe that's something I was exploring. But I don't want to add another can of worms. But that seems efficient and rather democratic. Thank you for your
Understood. Thank you, Mrs. Cole. Anyone else?
I have 2 hands raised now. One is House Lady 7. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to sound in on the vehicle situation also. I know a lot of you work out of the area, you're not around much. I'm around town pretty much. And I seldom go by the police station without seeing 4 of our vehicles sitting there, idle, parked. We have more than enough vehicles. And I just noticed the police department has a pickup truck. Why does the police department need a pickup truck? If we have a DPW with a pickup truck, can't they just use theirs? It really, really puzzles me. You just keep buying and buying, and you're relying on precedent. If you started in the first place, you can start undoing it. I want an austere budget, and it just troubles me that the excuse for having all these vehicles is in case something breaks. I mean, that's not an excuse for having 4 vehicles or 5 vehicles when there are only 2 people on duty. The chief has his own vehicle. And as far as being kind to the fire department, I love them dearly, but they get a very, very generous LoSAP program, which we pay for, and it seems to go up thousands of dollars every year. I don't think basing it on vehicle for whatever members of the fire department, it has happened in the past. I want us to cut back to what we absolutely need. The other thing being change of subject. Last year, I mentioned that the Christmas decorations on the light poles were looking rather faded and weary and just unattractive. So what did they do? This year they put them back up and they're just faded and unattractive. The bows now are orange instead of red. The balls are faded. The time to have fixed this would have been before they went out and put them up. The garland is fine. The basic wreaths are fine. The lights are not outstanding. If you ride down River Road, they're rather uninteresting. You need more white ones, less green and blue ones. And we're spending millions of dollars on empty space at a police station, and we can't spend a few $100s on new bows and Christmas balls. That really troubles me. I'll bet you could even get some of the residents of Fairhaven to donate the bows and the Christmas balls. But you're so concerned about how things look in Fairhaven, and then you go and put up these horrible, horrible faded decorations. It distresses me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Blazer. We appreciate your comments on the first piece. I can tell you that the council will certainly consider what you shared with us. I think that's how we got to tabling the resolution in the first place. Is we are concerned, and we're trying to make the best decision for the borough. You know, on the second piece on the Christmas decorations, I mean, I'm sure we'll discuss them amongst ourselves. I personally haven't noticed them being discussed. I don't know if that was the word you used. Distressing, I think was the word you used. I haven't noticed that. I'll take a look and we'll see if there's a need to update in any way. So thank you for your time. Teresa?
Chris Hempstead. Chris, go ahead and talk.
Hey, Chris.
Hello. Okay, you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have two questions, or well, two comments, or maybe one question and then a comment. So let me just break it up. I'll take the easy one first. With respect to notice for meetings, whether that's the council meetings, whether it's the zoning board, the planning board, or any special meeting, I noticed, you know, or I recognize that, you know, precedent is set historically to go out to Two River Times, Asbury Park Press, Star Ledger, the Hub, and bulletin boards. Is there any progress, you know, from a state mandate, or do we have the ability as a borough to advance notice to Facebook, Twitter, social media, constant contact?
Well, we do.
I think it was, I got an email today, Chris, that stated that the meeting was tonight. I don't know if you're signed up for those emails.
That's not what I mean. That's just notice of the meeting. I'm talking about matters when notice has to be given for a construction project or for a zoning or a, or a planning board project, those notices that go out as part of their requirement, not notice of the meeting, notice of their application.
Be noticing the residents, the 200-foot list, Chris?
Yeah.
That's land use law.
Well, not the registered. So I guess when they say notice has been given, when you make that announcement, notice has been given, what's the requirement? Is it 24 hours or is it like, how much time do people have to know?
You can't see me. Chris, just one sec. The borough attorney, Greg Cannon, is going to.
So it depends on the type of notice. So for a land use hearing, you have to publish it in the newspaper and serve on interested parties, which is 200 feet in some cases 500 within 7 days. For a council meeting, you have to publish it in the newspaper 48 hours in advance. So like, there's a number of different statutory deadlines, but they all involve advertisement in the newspaper, which I think is your principal point. And that there was a push at the state to go with e-notices or more modern forms of notice, which is I think what you're getting at. And that was defeated, frankly, by the newspaper lobby in the state because it's a large source of their revenue. So that effort ultimately failed at the State House. So all of the aforementioned statutory notices that I just mentioned all remain advertisement in the official actual newspaper.
Okay, so that's fair. I appreciate that. So it's it's not something we can just change on our own.
No, it's not. Well, it's not. And with respect to the council meeting notices, the clerk and the administrator mentioned to you, the borough does do that sort of things. We have discretion on those areas, and those are more modern forms. But like for land use, it's on the applicant to do that. So we can't impose costs or burdens upon them that aren't listed in those statutory notices. So a lot of those examples that you used are the onus to provide that notice is on a third party, not the borough. And we can't make them do things that the law doesn't say, essentially. That's why I think that's the gap that you were trying to hit at in terms of those other types of notices. But that's why we can't force people to do stuff that's not written in the statute, and the legislature won't change the statute.
But Chris, we also do put the planning and zoning board meetings and all our commission meetings on constant contact and also on our website.
And on the front side.
Yeah, I subscribe to all that, but unfortunately, and I appreciate the fact that we get that, and I certainly would want you to continue that. It was more on the legal statute of the actual material content of the notice not being within the statutory surrounding neighboring, whatever the required notice is. So in the absence of that, I have to go to Two River Times, the Hub, or a bulletin board to see what's going on. in these meetings, or wait for constant contact, which is 24 to 48 hours, before the meeting or whatever it is. So that's all. And that was answered more than adequately. So thank you. So it's a state issue. It's not a borough issue. With regard to go to the borough, I've got some concerns over the affordable housing overlay and the progression of what appears to be an application before the planning board. When the affordable housing overlay was presented to this council, I understand that it was a year or two ago. It was my understanding that we needed to adopt that in order to satisfy a state mandate and meet the requirement so that a builder couldn't come in and do builder's remedy at any time in the future. What appears to be presented, now nothing's been approved, so just, it's not lost on me. Nothing's been applied for or approved yet at the planning board, but there's an application before the planning board for a 3-story, 12,000 plus square foot building of commercial and market value residential use with the availability for two excuse me, I apologize. For only 2 affordable housing units, okay? So my question is this, as a council, does it concern you? I'd like to know what the pros and cons are to having, an affordable housing overlay zone. If someone can come in and go up 2 stories or more for that matter, and put in, 80% fair market value commercial and private, apartments or units for sale, and then solve for a small percentage of affordable housing, what is the town getting from that? Is it tax revenue and profit for the builder, or are we actually solving for affordable housing? I have to question and think to myself, what would happen if we just put 1 building up in town and instead of getting 2 units out of it, got 12? Instead of going up 3 stories, go up 1. I'm lost on why there seems to be this first application, which scares me, because if the precedent is set, I can envision the entire business zone in the overlay going up 3 stories or more and being mostly private and somewhat affordable, and what that might do to the town. Can the schools accommodate it? Yeah, sure. I guess we'll get more tax revenue, but do the benefits outweigh the cost?
So if it's all right, I'll take a little piece of this. So Chris, I think you may be citing the Sunoco site application.
I am.
Triggering, yeah. And so that was part of a negotiated plan with the state and with that landowner to create a fulsome plan that the court master would approve. And so that isn't necessarily it's actually the beginning and end of that particular type of development, and isn't necessarily indicative of what else will come down the pipe. So the second thing I think you were talking about as it relates to the schools, and I think you might have just mentioned that as sort of an example, but the state does not consider whether your schools can handle any type of housing, affordable or otherwise, when it's approving the plans. So we learned that in due course when we created the plan over the last 2 or 3 years, however long it's been, 5 years it feels like. So that the state doesn't allow you to consider that when you're putting overlay zones in place. As it relates to the rest of the overlay zones in the business district that allows for other development, we thought that the right mix for the downtown was to maintain a downtown rather than allow for multi-unit residential only to effectively gobble up our downtown. And so we created the plan based on that principle. I think I just probably opened up 10 more questions in your head, Chris, and I'd be happy to sit with you like we did last week and talk for an hour on the way home from work. I probably know more than I ever wanted to know about this stuff, but I don't want to keep everybody here all night. I want to turn it back to you, Chris. If you had more questions, we could probably answer them all, but there's no secrets here. These are, state mandated and state principled plans that have beginnings and ends. And as you may know, the end of 5 years, we're going to have to re-up and do another plan for the next 10 years. So we're going to have an opportunity to do this all over again. I'm going to volunteer not to do that the next time around. Kidding aside, maybe I would, just because I have the institutional knowledge, but this is sort of a living plan. So, the next time around, depending on how we score with the way that we yielded housing, will impact whether or not the state approves our plan going forward. So there's a lot of chapters to be written there, but I hope that was helpful.
It's somewhat helpful, I guess. Maybe, and admittedly, I don't attend every every council meeting, but I do know that over the last several years, there's been a lot of closed session meetings. That it's anyone's guess what those are about. I can presume that some of that has been about the Sunoco property. Is that potentially true, or is that something you can comment on? Or
once that plan went into place, all of the materials were made public. So all of the notes from all those meetings. So I'm not sure which meeting, but we didn't buy the Sunoco site, and we didn't buy 623, and we didn't buy a number of properties. We just ended up trying to make do with what we had. But happy to have a conversation with you about that, because that should be public at this point anyway.
And it's my understanding then that the Sunoco property, it was a deal or some kind of an arrangement with the state to satisfy our mandate effort with the Mount Laurel and the overlay zone. So it doesn't necessarily open up the doorway for people to buy other properties in town and go up 2 stories.
Not necessarily, but in some cases, yes.
Chris, just to answer your question more generally, though, every time we go into executive session, we pass a resolution first that outlines what we're going to discuss in executive session. So you could always go back and reference those. To the extent whatever was discussed in executive session is no longer private or considered executive session, I believe those minutes can then become available. So hopefully that helps answer that question. I'm also glad to answer any of the fair share housing question. While I was not on that committee, I had a lot of background on it, and I'm glad to obviously talk with you. You have my number.
Yep, I'll reach out to you privately, and Chris, I'll do the same, because again, I don't have any objection to fair share housing and affordable housing, but I do raise a red flag when the majority of the units are full market value for profit, for tax, and look, it's what I would want if I was a landowner or a property owner. I'd certainly say, yeah, sure, take 2 units and I'm going to sell 12 and put 4,200 square feet of retail space. It sounds like the affordable housing needs didn't get the better end of the deal, and of course I'm seriously concerned about that. 2 units out of 14 in a 4,000 square foot commercial zone. It's a little bit laughable, but if the state approved it, I'll take it.
Chris, it's not that simple, and I'm not a land use attorney or professional, but I do remember in law school something called spot zoning. You're not allowed to say all the fair share goes right here and you go over there in that corner of town and nowhere else. And so the intent is more to spread it out throughout the community and make it more widespread.
Right. That's why I thought the whole Mount Laurel went through, is to make sure it didn't all wind up in Asbury Park or somewhere else, that it went to every community. You got spread. Yeah.
And that's why Fairhaven took action to finally become compliant with fair share housing requirements.
But at the end of the day, this is a very profitable property. This is an incredibly profitable property that anyone would want this, because 12 fair market, units with 4,200 square foot of commercial space is a layup. Everyone would know that. And
the one last point on this, Chris, is there is a payment that the owner of that development makes to the town, which gets contributed to the construction of housing elsewhere in the community, which is actually over on Henderson.
And that's two or three units.
Two family house.
Yeah.
It'll help defray.
$75,000.
It'll help, yes, it'll help defray some of the cost of that as well. So it's not all going to be concentrated in a single building.
all is good. We can talk offline. Thank you. That was helpful.
Chris, thank you for your time.
I have one thing. If there's,
is there anyone else?
Pete McChesney just raised his hand. I'm gonna recognize Pete.
Peter.
Go ahead, Peter.
Hi, thanks, Teresa. Just a quick one. As some of you know, I sent an email last week about the clear cutting a lot on Laurel Avenue. I haven't heard anything back about that. Has there been any discovery made? Was it done surreptitiously? Was it permitted? If it was permitted, what's the replacement plan and what's the enforcement for the replacement plan?
Pete, I actually just got this final follow-up on this afternoon, like at 4 o'clock. I had it here at the meeting in case anyone came in. The bottom line, I do have a full report here, which I'm gonna ultimately, I'll happily share it with you. I'll send it to the mayor and council. It has a synopsis of what took place on that property, the permitting that was issued for that property, and pictures of some of what actually was allowed to be taken down. So I'll defer to the mayor, and or if you're okay with me emailing this to you tomorrow, I'll have no problem doing that.
Yeah, that's fine. We can follow up offline. I just was curious because I hadn't heard from you. Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks, Pete.
Teresa, is there anyone else?
Yes, I have Bonnie Tercibia now. I would like to recognize. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Hey, Bonnie.
Hi, everybody. Just to follow up on the clear cutting topic that was just introduced. I did actually call on that same property, the 15 Laurel, and spoke to Bill Brooks, expressing just concern again about what seems to be unnecessary cutting down trees. And I guess, you know, and now the 37 3rd Avenue that is being clear cutted, I attended that planning board meeting, which, I mean, I guess maybe I was behind the 8 ball. I didn't see that coming or didn't hear anything about it, but I just wonder what the master plan is here, because that was a 37 3rd was a single home lot that was subdivided, and as a result was approved to be clear cut, and it's right next to Sportsman Field. So these kids that have been looking at a beautiful treed property, a natural area next to their field, now we're going to be looking at 2 homes crammed in there. And it just doesn't seem right. I wonder what the benefit is to the town of continuing to cram these homes in and eliminate the natural space. I mean, the trees and I guess, does anybody do you see the value of having these trees in open areas? And I mean, particularly next to where these kids are playing every day. I mean, gosh, if I'd known that was up for sale, I mean, I would have been pushing to add it to Sportsman Field, make a natural area. I mean, I don't know. I just hope that the council revisits the natural resources, the master plan. What are we going to keep just subdividing up every property and adding more and more homes? I mean, what is the ultimate goal here? So anyway, I'm just a concerned citizen and hope it doesn't get out of control. So thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. I can just comment very quickly that I know that Shade Tree Commission, land use, and many discussions with the entire council. I think this is on all of our radar. It's a concern that we all share. What Z is going to look like, I can't tell you, but it's not going to look like A. So we're gonna get closer to there as we figure out what the remedies are and figure out how we can get the borough in a place that still encourages development, you know, in a way that satisfies the residents of the borough. We just, it's at the top of everything that we're concerned about. So we appreciate your time and your thoughts. Okay. Anyone else, Teresa?
No, sir, I don't see anybody else.
Tracy?
Just quickly, I forgot to share something. Tracy, 123. There was a resident, and by the way, I have to echo the concerns of both Peter and Bonnie, and I've been very tuned in to our canopy loss. Obviously, it's being driven by land use, and I know that that's a priority for the rest of the governing body. So, just wanted to echo their concerns. When the resident called in about the potential crosswalk on River Road at near Baton, which is a T intersection, I quickly consulted the active transportation plan to see what it would offer us, and it's always surprisingly, I get amazed every time a resident touches on something that is immediately verifiable by the technical professionals that we brought in. And she touched on a crosswalk necessary in that area. And in fact, our ATP maps both a pedestrian crash incident and a bicycle crash incident on either side of Baton. So let's see, if you see where Baton comes into River, Maple Avenue tees in just east of Baton. And then I forget what the other one is. The one that's just a half notch over. Church. Yes, Church. There was a bicycle crash there. So it is, we have data to support the need for improvements. And it doesn't surprise me that the residents can sense it too. So I just wanted to make sure you have that.
Thank you, Teresa. Teresa, anyone else?
Oh, yes, Ruth Blazer has her hand up again. Go ahead, Ruth, you can unmute yourself. Ruth, did your hand up by accident or? Oh yeah, she's on now. Go ahead, Ruth.
I don't know if anybody noticed, but within the last 2 weeks, the two corner properties on Hants Road that are intersected by Parker Avenue, both had giant trees removed. And from what I could see of the stump of the tree, they were not rotted on the inside. And I thought there was a percentage of trees on a property that could be taken down. These, I cannot understand why they were taken down. They were lovely, mature trees. Do you know anything about it?
Yeah, I can't speak specifically to it. I mean, we could get back to you on that, Ruth. You know, if we did an investigation through Bill Brooks, see if there were any permits filed. But I don't know if anyone here have any, none of us have any knowledge of those trees.
Those trees had to have been between 24 and 30 inches in diameter. That's why I say they were lovely and they were old.
I have to look and see the permit.
Yeah.
I don't review them on a daily basis.
Ruth, we'll see if we can find anything out about that, and certainly we'll get back to you offline if we get any intel on.
You're welcome for a copy of the permit. You can just call Betty in tomorrow and she'll send one out to you.
Okay.
Maggie, is anyone else? Teresa?
No, sir.
Maggie, you said you wanted to.
Yep, just had a quick comment thanking everybody who came out to volunteer for the natural area, pulled some vines, pulled out some big logs, 2 great days. So we'll see you in the spring for another volunteer day. Thank you very much, everybody, and to the committee for putting it together.
I think there's 2 over here.
I do. So I had the fortunate experience to be on the council and to take some deep dives into our meetings, which has been so beneficial. What I would like to ask is, as we go forward, when we talk about new business or we have department reports, if there are projects or anything that's just a deeper dive into this, I just find it, I understand personnel is probably, you know, one of the anomalies here, but that there's no projects that are being worked on or anything that we can bring further that is more transparent or just bringing it to the public. So when I sit in the chair and I hear, you know, update on finance or police or something, if there's just projects or something that's going on, it could be of interest to the community. Bless you. So that's just my only takeaway as I've sat here the last couple of months and we talk about, you know, updates and so forth. You're doing so much work. So let's hear it so that the community can benefit from it and also, you know, send thank yous and so forth for all of your hard work. So that's just my only point as we talk about new business and any of the department reports.
Thank you, Councilman. Did you have something? Nothing to report now. That's it.
I was just gonna say that I completely agree. I think actually it was either the last council meeting or the one before that you were not here. I actually had mentioned how I really would like to see minutes for all of the council committees. And I would like to see us have a plan in the beginning of the year for each one of those committees with a strategy set out that can be shared and follow-ups. And I think we had a discussion about how some of those minutes may not be immediately available to the public because some of that information could be confidential, can get very messy, but that we do have discretion to share it among ourselves. So there's a little more transparency around explaining what happened in the last meeting and the one before that, and there's a story to tell in writing. So I think I'm kind of going in the same direction. I just want to say I support that. I submit a similar request for that. And I really think what I actually think I would like to do is maybe I will do minutes for the finance committee for the last few that we've had, and I'll share it in the next meeting. And maybe the council can determine whether that's something acceptable. But what I have proposed was not minutes of the type that Allison is taking, something more like a very abbreviated, short, you know, 4 or 5 bullet points, even if it's just a half page, just to say who was there, who met, what was on the agenda. These were the 4 key points. That's what's going to be discussed in the next time. And this creates a trail and it's easier to visualize it. So I support your idea.
Yeah, just key priorities of where priorities are being worked on. I also think that this, and I know that we've talked about strategic planning as new council members come on. I think that all the comments that we're hearing about land use and the trees, it just rolls up to a bigger picture. What do we want our community to look like with this Sunoco station? My biggest fear is that we have this new retail space coming in. What does that look like? And what's happening with some of the retail space that's not being used right now? I just like buildings that are not being formally used is just a big concern. And Mrs. Blazer said, you know, we're concerned what the town looks like. I think we need to elevate that. I think we need to really elevate our concern of what the town looks like. And I don't know, I think everything gets incorporated in that. I think it's from everything I talked about with the garbage pickup to now Christmas decorations, which Mrs. Blazer, I will look and walk and see what they look like. I'm usually seeing them at night, so I'm not quite sure I'm getting the same perspective that you are. But I think it's all just it just comes up to what's our vision of our town? What is the strategy? And then what are the tactics? We talk a lot about tactics, but what's the overall vision and the strategy that we want to see? I'll leave you all with that.
Mrs. Blazer has her hand up again there. Ruth, you can unmute yourself. Ruth, did you want to speak again? Maybe not. Okay.
Chris.
I promise to not go past 9. I will keep this to 2 minutes. Dermer Dreams happened over the weekend and the weeks leading up. I know a lot of the people in this room put bags out on their porch, so thanks to everybody who participated. I'm sure we'll hear about the truckloads and the amount of food that was collected, but it was astonishing. And I saw lots of folks running around doing lots of work on that. So big kudos to the Dermer family and to everybody in town who participated, and everybody outside of town, because I saw things in Shrewsbury, I saw things in Little Silver and all over the place. So great return on the effort that they put in on that. And then the other thing is Thanksgiving's this week, and I think it's our 8th turkey trot. It's not formal, it's informal. There's no cost. Just come on out to Fairhaven Fields at 9:30 on Thursday before you start eating and drinking and laying around, and you could start working the legs a little bit and get the blood pumping. So we had a great turnout 2 years ago. Not so great turnout last year for good reason, and hopefully we'll have lots of folks come out. There's a Toys for Tots drive that our U.S. Marine Mike McHugh spearheads along with that. And we do that also with a number of stores and locations around town, including one that we'll likely put on the front stoop here at the Borough Hall, but also at the Columbus Club and other locations. So we'll get that news out. So I think it's still not 9 o'clock.
Mayor, we have 2 hands up.
Oh no, sorry.
Who do we have?
Ruth's hands up again. Ruth?
I wasn't finished. I just want to ask everybody to gain some perspective. Fairhaven is a small town. It's smaller than some sections of Middletown, yet we have a lot of administration, a lot of employees, and a lot of vehicles. So when you pass these things, keep that in mind. Fairhaven hasn't gotten any bigger in the last 100 years. And I think we're just, it's becoming high maintenance. Let's put it that way. I think possibly, I know Fairhaven is a very small part of our tax bill, but I think it could be reduced.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chris Henson has his hand up.
Chris?
Go ahead, Chris.
I'll just echo what the councilwoman was saying. Like, look, we don't know, we don't know exactly what Fairhaven's going to look like, but I think, if the more we can control and understand what it was within our capabilities to steer what we want it to look like, I think that'll be better in the long run. I certainly know what I don't want it to look like. I don't know if I'll be here when it happens, but if we continue to allow for 3 or 4 story buildings and big business fronts, it's going to look like downtown Red Bank, and it's going to change the character of the town. It'll be on balance. It'll increase revenues in some places and decrease taxables in others because property values will go down. So on balance, it's probably a net zero in the long run. I would just caution and urge the council people to take very, very close or pay very close attention to what is happening with this affordable housing mandate in the overlay zone. Remember also, and not all of you were on the council at the time, that, I was very vocal in the initial overlay zone location. I was very concerned that they were putting the overlay zone specifically in the most densely populated, heavily trafficked part of town, as opposed to considering other areas in town. And, that again is now coming to fruition as we see this Sunoco property, come before the board. It sounds like there might have been some precedent to, get this before the planning board. It's concerning. It's concerning on what it might lead to. And I think a lot of people in town, when they start to see it happen, they're gonna raise their hands and say, what happened? This is an opportunity for the council to engage with people and ask them what they think their vision is for the future of Fairhaven as it relates to the business district and specifically the overlay zone.
Thank you, Chris. Teresa, anyone else?
That's it, sir.
Before I call for executive session, I just want to say Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday. And, I won't share, my thankfulness with my friends and family. I'll share that with them privately, but I want to publicly acknowledge how thankful I am to the community for welcoming me with open arms, and then extend that to the borough staff, the patience they've had with me in doing that. And then just as important, and even more so, thank you to all of you. This has been a hell of a ride so far, and I can't wait to continue it with all of you. So thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving to all. And with that, we're going to move to executive session. Formal action will not be taken.
Happy Thanksgiving.